Hello.
No.
I can say hi.
Welcome back to our painting stream. We have been working diligently on these dungeon tiles and making these doorways. And we're going to be finishing up the doors. We don't have the more gray paint yet, correct?
It's supposed to be here Thursday.
So we'll have it soon.
Friday.
So by Friday, we'll have more. So for the meantime, while I'm finishing up these doors, you'll have to find something to do.
Yeah, I'm going to straighten paper clips to make hinges.
Okay.
Paper clips.
Hopefully this won't take me too long. So I've been painting these doors. I have sort of a base coat in. There's like a wood brown with a bright silver on it right now for all the iron. What I need to do is, if you can see in the middle there's a little bit of silver that got on the brown. My first task today will be to go through each door and take some of this brown and clean up those little spots, which will dry nice and quick. And then I have to put a black wash on all of this silver in order to tone it down a bit. It's a little much right now for iron doors.
And the way these work, they go in here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's some little holes on the top there. We take this high-tech thing, this paper clip, and straighten it using some pliers. And I'll show you how that works in a minute after I straighten this one.
And what you're seeing here are pieces that we 3D printed ourselves on those printers behind us there. We use them in our D&D stream, which airs on this channel, Dyson Dungeons, at 2 p.m. Eastern on Sundays. So if you're interested in seeing these pieces we're making in action, you can go ahead and check out our stream. We also have like a YouTube channel with our backlog. All of the designers for these pieces, if you're interested in that part, are on our website, dysondungeons.com. And if you go there, there's an attributions tab. You can also find playlists of all our old shows as well.
So there is a straightened paper clip, and these doors also have a little hole in them. And barely see it here. And the first task is to get this through the door, because that tells you if it's really straight or not, and it's really not. So, anyway, it'll require a little bit more work.
Some finessing.
And so when I get it straight enough and it goes through the door easily, then the next step is to insert it in the doorway, push the pin all the way through to the bottom, depending on whether it's a left or right-handed door, and then crimp the top to hold it in. So here I am doing some little more straightening.
Some of these doors are better than others in terms of cleanup and fixes, but in general, not too bad. Now, a big part of doing the wash on these will be giving it the ability to dry. I'm not going to be going super thick on like extra on the wash, I'm gonna be doing a fairly controlled amount. So it should dry relatively quick, but I won't want to like flip them around and move them too much while it's drying, because the wash is a very, very wet paint, and it has a tendency to run a lot more than something like the Tamiya I'm using right now. Doing okay there?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. This door is wet for some reason.
That's weird.
Like with water. Okay. And onto the last door for cleanup. Okay, so not too bad, pretty quick and easy. I'm gonna use the same brush, I think, for the wash, so lift this up so it doesn't dry. And I will need a cup for black wash. I think they're in a big old pile over by you. Alright, and our black wash is over here right now. This one's getting pretty low finally. This big container of black wash that always gets a little on your thumb no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm. You got some close there.
Yeah. I probably won't use them for this part, but maybe in the near future here. Alright, so all I'm going to do is just take a tiny bit of black wash. The brush soaks them right up because it's so thin. And run it over this iron. Or what is to be iron. And here, with just one quick brush, you can see that bar is a lot darker with that black wash than the rest of it. And that'll give it just a more cohesive, lived-in look that we are trying to achieve. And if a little spreads down onto the wood, it's really not a problem in this case, so I don't have to be ultra careful. And I can get away with quite a small amount of black wash here. How is your layer making going?
On the third one.
We'll need 10.
Yep.
Because there are 10 doors and doorways. So the main thing I want to do, here's a side-by-side comparison. That's a washed one, and these are all unwashed. Now, I'm going to set that over here upright to let it dry while I do the rest of them. And then, this should be mostly dry by the time I get through the others, and I can flip it over or do the other side. And I'll dab the paper sometimes. That's just to control the volume of wash that's in the brush. Because it has a tendency to soak it up really fast. In order to control the volume, I'll sometimes dab a little extra out onto the paper. Now, one nice thing about wash is because it's so thin, if you apply it and realize, oof, I put a little too much here, if it hasn't dried yet, you can usually just take a paper towel or a Q-tip or something and suck it right off the piece. Just absorb it right up off the piece. So this is a nice side-by-side comparison. It still has that metal reflectivity, but it's just not nearly as shiny and new looking. Looks a little more like it would fit in a dungeon or a fortress of some sort by doing this little application of wash. Now there are paints that you could use if you don't want to do a wash process. The steel we have is actually kind of in this tonal range. One thing I like about using a wash over just getting a paint that matches that level of color is that it inherently builds in a little inconsistency into it because it will pool in different areas a little differently. It won't all just be one single gray tone. And that is actually a good thing for creating like a believable looking piece. Because not everything is made perfectly. So if you can sort of work in those inconsistencies into a piece, it can add a bit of character. Okay. This is my 5th one, so it'll be 5 out of 10 for this side. Once I get through here. And my wash is very easy to use, but also a little technical in a bit of a weird way. It's very free-flowing and has sort of a dramatic effect on what you're using painting usually. But you kind of have to pay attention to sort of the liquid dynamics of it to make sure it's not running off where you don't want it to. It's a little like a watercolor in that regard. Although instead of absorbing into paper, it sort of floats on the top of your miniature. Which is why I try not to rotate them side to side too much if I have it looking the way I want it to, until it dries a bit. It lets you sort of control. Wash can also dry very slowly, or if you have a very small amount, it will dry very quickly. But generally speaking, it compared to like an acrylic paint, it dries a bit more slowly, and it'll get a little tacky actually as it dries. So before we attach the doors into these frames, we're going to want to finish these frames as well. You don't want to have a door inset in there and then have to try and paint around that door if you don't have to. So the thing we'll want to do is we're going to do some darker gray mixed in on some of these bricks, just in sort of random spots basically, and then we'll also be giving black wash to this piece before we go adhering all of these doors into their frames. That's sort of the very last step, and that just gives you the space to work without running into having to do revisions. Basically, we're going to look for having two finished pieces that we just join together at the end, basically.
So would you like me to paint some random dark?
If you feel like it, sure.
Sure, just on the verticals?
Yeah.
No, on the floor.
No. We'll keep the floor fairly consistent. Any inconsistencies in the floor we'll build in with the black wash.
I'll just use this dark gray.
Yeah.
So just a few miscellaneous random blocks, mainly on the sides, I guess. So I'll do one, see how it turns out. Probably just like one or two on each side, because they're fairly small, right?
Yeah, you don't need to go overboard, just to give a little variation in the stonework. You know, you could introduce some like brown stones, things like that. I figure we'll keep this set fairly simple so that it's versatile. You know, but there could be like a sandstone block mixed in, things like that, if you were doing another set. Or you could make the whole thing out of sandstone. Maybe you're going down in a, you know, like a desert temple or something. A little color shift like that can drastically change the look and feel of a piece, which is good to know. But we're looking to keep these keeps fairly generic in their coloration, just so they can be used for the maximum number of things, maximum number of games and settings.
Excuse me. Okay, here's one randomly highlighted.
Why don't you go ahead and show the camera once you're done sneezing?
I'm done sneezing, yeah. So there. They did one on one side and two on the other, and then carried around because it's only one block wide to the other side as well.
And I have gotten through my 10 doors on one side, so this one's mostly dry. This is what the more finished door looks like, as opposed to the brighter unfinished.
You mean Finnish as opposed to Norwegian or Swedish?
Yes. So, focus. There we go. Wash versus unwash. A lot shinier and light brighter. And this will sort of fit into the dungeon setting a little better. So all I have to do now is go through, do the other side, hit the edges. And we will have a set of 10 doors ready to go into a big old dungeon. And when I say big, I mean very large. We've been taking a while producing this dungeon set, and actually are having to restock our gray paint in order to get through it all. But should be here by next week, or actually by this Friday's show, when we
start painting things gray again.
When we'll start painting things gray. I've gotten through almost all the complicated pieces with the gray. That being like the doors, the windows, the curves, the tunnels, the arrow slits, things like that. And now it's pretty much just a whole lot of floors and single wall tiles. So they're a lot like these pieces, but it's a solid wall instead of a door frame. How is your random brick generator going?
Quite random. Something very random.
And then once I get through all these doors, I will need to hit the sides of them quickly. I don't want the door to swing open and for people to see a bright, shiny top on the door that looks really out of place and not at all like the rest of it. But I'm getting through them fairly quickly at least. And we should, hopefully, have a whole mess of doors assembled on finished tiles by the end of today. Okay, halfway through this batch on the other side. And these are going to be nice, sturdy iron-bound doors that will fit nicely in a dungeon or a keep or a castle or any other sort of fantasy setting, I feel like. Mm. 3 more. How many do you have left? You're on your 6th one.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. 2 more. And then I can get the edges, which should not take nearly as long because it's just a straight line on 4 sides rather than a little grid that I have to go over. last one. Alright. Okay, there are 10 doors done on both sides, and now I just need to hit the edges with a bit of black in order to give a consistent look. In order to keep track of which one, how many sides I've done, I'm going to say 2, 3, and 4. And some of these you're probably going to have to pierce through a little with the wire.
Yeah, you see that?
On some of the paint. And there's just a thin layer of paint over some of the holes that you just pour through. Shouldn't be an issue, too. And 4. That one got a little dark because some had spilled over, but that should be a-okay. One, 2, 3. One, 2. 3. Alright, 4 more of these to go. Hi, Cake Game Lady. Thanks for dropping by.
Hello.
We're getting some dungeon doorways assembled here. So, once I get the last of these doorways done, what I'm gonna do is wash all of the doors to get them, all the doorways to get them all ready for loading. And in a few minutes, once the wash dries, if you feel like it, you can get the wires like in place, make sure they get through each door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There we go.
Yep. After it sets a bit.
How are you doing today? Yeah, I'm not going super heavy on these, but it shouldn't take too long, and that's the first one up there. So that should be the most dry, theoretically.
I'm just trying to get these straightened paper clips through the little holes that you can't see in the top and bottom of these doors, and then they swing on those.
It creates the hinge.
As they go through the door frame.
Alright, so 10 doors, all done. Here's a close-up of one of them, if I can get the light on it. There we go.
So I'm just going to leave these paper clips inside the doors. They have to come out again.
So which ones did you do first? That'll be the most dry.
Probably the ones in the back.
Okay. I always like to place mine in order.
I just sort of set them down.
Oh, that's good.
Out of the way.
Being home is always very nice. I'm going to grab maybe not the super large brush, but I'm going to grab a larger brush here. In order to cover the volume. And since I'm going to be holding these, this might be, yeah, this was an older glove, but it has a little paint on it, but it's otherwise fine. That's all old dry paint.
So you can see how the paper clip goes through the little holes, and the bottom pin goes in the bottom, the stone part, and the top will get cut off and crimped over.
Alright, I'm seeing how dry these are. I need another minute. Alright, so what we have is our door frame, and it's fully painted. You can see there's some darker gray bricks put in it, and the door frame itself is a darker wood. So I have to tone the whole thing down semi-inconsistently to make it look a little more stony and lived in, rather than just like a darker gray, like a weird gray color. No, I'll live with this brush for applying this. I might use the bigger brush. It has a little more brush action to it. So here's a little side-by-side. This side has some wash on it, the other side doesn't. It just makes it look less flat and a little darker, a little more used. And I'm not putting a ton on. Once this is all dry, I'm probably going to do a little spot touching with it to create areas of darker and lighter. Like, basically, I'm probably going to put some random splotches in using it to create a worn tile look. But for now, I'm going quite light on the wash in order to just build in that tone. And I'm going to let some of the wash hit the frame of the door because that's also probably a well-used sort of structure. So, just to grab one of these. It's a little side-by-side comparison. One looks a little more in place for being in a dungeon, I feel like. Especially once they're all together.
Yeah, the wash especially shows up nicely on the floor. It makes it look all kind of uneven.
Yeah, and that's part of the nice thing about the wash, if you can build for it, is you can get this sort of inconsistent aspect to it. Let's see. I just want to make sure the darker gray bricks are dry before I go do it, or else I might spread dark gray randomly all over the piece. And I want to get the edges on the floor as well, just so if you see them, they don't look out of place. So you have all the wires set.
Well, yeah, they're in the holes. You'll have to decide if you want right or left-handed doors on all of these. That's always a chore.
I think. Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we'll make a mix of them.
As long, yeah, they do have to open inward. The way the frame is shaped, they can't open the other way. It has a little bar that catches it otherwise, so it doesn't.
You could make them either open this way or that way. So we'll see.
Maybe we'll just do like 50-50.
Yeah.
Alright.
Of course, these aren't really epoxied in. They just kind of sit in, and they're crimped over the top.
So you can always
take them apart and switch them.
They're just held mechanically and by the wire. So that makes it a bit easier to change as needed.
Yep, those are going to stay tacky for a while.
Yeah, the wash, when it's done in a large volume like this, tends to be a little tacky when it dries. Not easy to handle. I mean, if you want something to do,
I'm going to work on those towers.
Oh, you want to adjust the towers?
I'm going to see if I can disassemble one without making too much of a mess.
Yeah, probably an X-Acto knife will be the way to go.
Yeah.
So, the watchtowers we assembled earlier, we're going to make a slight adjustment on them after sort of finishing and playing with them a little. We think that the guide we were given regarding their construction was a little off. And the top part should actually be the bottom part.
Right. So what we need to do, getting in the way a little bit, is this is where they've been joined here. So I'm going to cut that. And then we're going to put the top part on the bottom and the bottom on the top.
Meaning we'll need to put some balsa wood in the...
Yeah, more connectors. So the first step is to take it apart.
I think
after so carefully putting it together.
Just some careful cuts with a X-Acto knife through the balsa wood will do the trick.
So I will start trying to do that. We'll see what happens here.
Okay, I have all of the 4 pieces done. So you can see here, if the light's showing well, the sort of difference in the two. And this is sort of the color and vibe that the whole dungeon set's gonna go for. It will lighten up and be a little less shiny once it dries, but it's this sort of dark gray stone feel.
Okay.
Although I need a little more wash to get through these.
So fixing the top will be easy since it's already nicely glued together. Just need to touch up
with some brown.
The bottom here. What we want to do, you can see this at all here, is glue this on top of that. Actually, that doesn't sit too terribly badly. It would be nice if we could put a post up through it, but
I think if you create a little balsa wood platform for it to sit on in those corners, it would also fill in those corners, so they're not quite as...
It
would help fill in those gaps.
So I think what we would do is probably 2 steps. One is to put little balsa wood sticks in these corners, which will fill, like you said, fill them in.
And paint them brown afterwards.
Brown, so it'll look consistent with everything else. And then, actually, that's a fairly big surface.
It is, for glue.
And that will sit on there really quite nicely. So I'm going to cut the other one off. And then I'm going to get some little balsa wood sticks, I guess.
Yep.
Maybe we'll mix up some epoxy and get out the clothespins.
And then we'll have the watchtowers done officially. The clothespins are still piled up right over there if you want them.
Yep. Let me cut this other one up first.
Alright. No. I'm trying to be it's really easy with the black wash to go a little too far and then have everything just be black. So basically what I'm doing is loading up my brush at the start and then using what was loaded the entire rest of the figure almost. Sometimes I'll get a tiniest refresh where needed, but the big thing with painting all of these is making sure you remember to get all the sides. When you're doing the same type of piece over and over and over, it's easy to sort of forget which part. So it's always good to step back and check over everything once or twice before moving on to the next piece. I'm just going to get like 1 or 2 drops more. It tied me over through all of these. Alright. And 1 more piece to do. And then we just gotta wait for those to all dry. One thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little bit of just making them look a little fancier, or well, not fancy, but you know, lived in and worn on a couple pieces. I'll probably put like 3 of these out. I'm gonna add like a random splotch onto the floor. It'll be like sort of a subtle thing, but it just gives a little nod to the idea that something might have stained there. Maybe someone dropped some wine, or blood happened, or just water staining, things like that. So why don't I go with this one, this one. Which one do you want me to put the 3rd splotch on? Another 4-piece?
Yeah, it shows better there.
Alright. So, this is pretty straightforward. You just get a fair amount on your brush. Let's see if I can do this with what's left. And then just splotch it kind of thickly in a spot randomly. And let it dry. So, there's a splotch. Maybe up here by the door. There's a little extra dark splotch. And right under the door like that. There. And that just creates a little floor inconsistency. I might do it with 1 more, just because we have 10 pieces. Because not all floors would be perfectly clean and even everywhere. So,
you know, especially in old castles. You know, good help is hard to find.
So I did just get water on this piece, and that's a-okay.
So I have made a whole bunch of tiny little sticks there that will fit into the corners of these. You know, as it turns out, some of the corners are lower than others, so after they're glued in, we can decide if we want to trim the tops off or not.
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty easy to do since it's also wood.
Okay, so that means I have gotten through all of these. You're working away at that. So one thing I could do is I have a huge pile back here of already gray painted dungeon tiles, like these corners, for example. I can start putting in some darker stone sections into them.
Oh yeah, we're gonna spend a lot of time doing random stones because there's only like 1,000 of them.
So here's all the corners, for example. All of the 4x4 corners, at least. So I might just work on that for a little bit.
No, we got dark gray.
But you can go ahead and get the watchtower sorted.
No, these are pretty much ready to go. We just need to
get it all cut together.
Get them epoxied in at some point. That's not a rush. But that'll take forever, so why not?
You just don't want to finish up those towers, right?
No, it really needs 2 people.
Oh, because of the volume?
No, because of holding the, putting the epoxy on and then clipping it on. Holding it. Can you hand me one of those paper clips?
Hold on, sorry.
Those pins.
I was getting our music fixed up.
Let's see if these still work on these corners. No, they really don't. So these.
Alright, so giving myself a little space to work here.
No, these things won't really squeeze it in, so I think I'm just going to set them in just as they are. And just go ahead and get it done. So, onto the wonderful world of epoxy mixing and stuff.
Generally, I'm gonna try and paint the same brick on the same side, on the other side. But honestly, when it's all in one set, it won't really be noticeable. But you know, just for my sake.
So I'm mixing up some 2-part epoxy. Won't need very much. Put 8 little pieces of balsa wood into the 8 little corners here.
And a lot of what I am painting here is going to be honestly barely visible, but it will add a very subtle variation in quality to each piece that wouldn't happen if I did not do it. So you can, I don't know if you can see with this camera, but where even though it's like all darkened, there are certain bricks that are slightly darker than others. That's because we did this, what I'm doing here, beforehand. I'm actually just gonna plug away at this for a moment. Oh, the lovely smell of epoxy.
Epoxy hardener and isopropyl alcohol.
It's actually the hardener that has the smell.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a huge fan of it.
I think what I'm going to do is put the epoxy let's try this. You put the epoxy on the inside.
And I'm just really choosing all of these bricks at random. As random as I can. So that I get a nice little effect like that. I'm choosing sort of a random amount as well. Like maybe one wall has a bunch of them, maybe one wall has almost none. Maybe some are grouped together, maybe some are not. Here you go. Here's the flip. There you go. I hope you saw it. Let's see. Maybe down at the bottom on this. There we go. So, just getting through, getting these nice little random corners. I only have for 11 more to do. There's a lot. That cap's getting a little too dry to get paint out of, so I'll switch to the bottle. How about here? And here. And here. Sometimes people like to just see little clusters like that. It's sort of a feeling of consistency.
The epoxy's shiny and it comes through on the outside, but we'll paint the outside also.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little repainting on these, but it looks like they're coming along.
Yep. Some of them will need to be trimmed down a little bit, but that's easy enough. So we'll let these set for a while, 10 minutes or so. Then the epoxy will be set, and I can do the trimming and the painting, and then maybe even put them together.
It would be exciting getting the watchtowers finished.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to do somewhere between 1 and 4 bricks per side. You know, varying the number each time.
Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I was just trying to remember what color to use to paint these. I think it's red brown. Yeah, because it's lighter than that.
Did we use red brown for that?
I think we used red brown for this. I almost thought of that, but there's enough for the touch-ups.
Okay. I know our red brown is super low because of those towers.
Or flat brown.
It might have been flat brown.
It's like flat brown, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out when we put some on if it matches or not.
Do you need flat brown?
Oh, not yet.
Oh, you're waiting for drying.
Yeah, I'll give these a few more minutes. And then I trim the tops, and then touch them on. No.
Hmm?
That's one that never stuck.
It didn't stick?
No, this is an old one.
Oh.
Let's see if I can get it. Popped off. to put that one back. And then I'll just cut a new one. This is the leg that broke that one time.
Oh, and it never really healed.
Never really. Yeah.
Accidentally touched one of the spots I just painted. It's an occupational hazard. Okay. Got for most of these corners so far. How is your tower doing?
Well, it's setting. Maybe place a little stick candle up. That's setting. So I think I'm going to take a little break and get something to drink. I'll be back in 5 minutes and should be able to finish this up just about the time that we're done.
I have 6 more of these corners to do. Just going through one at a time and doing all these little breaks. Where do I want to go with this one? After a while, you start going like, did I already do one there? Or have I ever put one here? You kind of second guess yourself. And the reality is that it doesn't really matter. I'm just if there's already one in one spot. No randomness works a little bit. And in the end, these are going to be very subtle variations. That just helps your mind sort of envision the differences. Sometimes I just mark which ones I need to paint quickly.
Let's put little dots on them.
So I know without having to continually flip.
Oh, yeah, so that the front and the back
Are loosely matched. The model doesn't match them exactly on each side. And you never really see both sides at once. They kind of block one another. But it's just helpful as like a little guide.
So I'm going to, those are the new sticks that got put in. So I'm going to touch those up on both the inside and the outside. Cover up the shiny epoxy and make it look uniform. And then this is where I cut it off earlier on the tops of the sticks. They have little white spots. Now touch those up too. And then the last step will be to put the bottom, where the bottom's on the top. More accurately, where the top and the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Did you say you were going to take a break and then didn't?
Yeah. That's what happened.
What happens? From time to time.
But before I go too far, I might actually let this dry to make sure that it matches.
Mm-hmm. trying to figure out if we use red brown or flat brown.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the flat brown, but
You're never sure until it's actually on. See, what we should do is every model write down what colors we used for what.
Yeah,
be very thorough and careful about it.
Yeah, so the next time it would be
easier, but we aren't going to do that.
No. See, and the weird thing is that some of these colors look really very different when you first apply them.
Yeah, sometimes colors darken or lighten after they've dried. So it can actually be kind of helpful to do a color guide where you put all of the colors you have onto a piece of paper, label them and let them dry. So you can see what the actual dried color looks like. Just like that. And that just helps you keep track of when you're making decisions about what color to paint your miniature. You're gonna have a more true color in your head rather than the color of the paint in the bottle.
And definitely the color of the top, which sometimes has nothing
to do with
the color inside. Really hardly at all.
Especially if it's just a white top or a black top that you're talking about the Tamiya is.
Mm-hmm.
Two more of these to do. And then I will have a nice pile of ready to wash corner pieces. Okay. Although I might just keep working away on prepping more pieces for upcoming wash-a-thon. quickly mark out which bricks I want to paint, and then through them one at a time. Last corner. Okay. So, I have gotten through all of these corners with the dark gray, making sure to get some nice randomization. I think the door frames are drying up pretty nicely. How is our gluing going?
It's all together. I'm doing the touch-up.
Nice.
What I think is the right color.
So here's a bit of a finished door frame. So you can still see, even though it's more consistent because of the shading, that you can see some of the darker bricks showing through. And that's also one of the splotches there by the door to create sort of that inconsistent floor. And when it's all together in a big dungeon set, it looks pretty nice, I think. Okay, so I'm gonna set all these corners over in the corner. And these are in the like ready to go state once we're all good, we can go ahead and do a big washing and get them all fairly in a finished state. being a little careful because they are drying a little. Okay. Now that they're out of the way, so I won't hit them. I think once you're in a good position, once you're done with touch-up, we can affix the doors into the door frames to finish the day. My little big pile of door frames here. These should all be pretty nice once they're in place. So I'm thinking we'll do half and half for the door opening left or right. You know? Because we have an even amount. So I'll do 2 on the big door, and 3 of each on the smaller door. Just to have a nice even divide with lots of options. And these are only held in mechanically, so if we ever need to change them or want to change them, it's just a matter of unbending some wire and moving them. You can see here, this is the hinge. We're just using paper clip to get that nice wire. This wire will run through the door frame and into the floor, and then we're gonna bend the wire over the top of the door frame. We might pop a little brown paint on them just to hide them. You know, just a tiny dab of brown paint to hide them against the tops of these door frames. So you don't have this bright shiny silver. But that'll only take half a second once they're all in. I don't really want to jump into anything, so I'm just taking a minute.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So, we have about, I'd say, somewhere between a third and a half of the dungeon sets painted gray. So we're slowly moving through them. Next Friday assuming the mail comes on time, we'll have the rest of the gray paint we need to do all of it. And we'll be able to start really going with these darker gray bricks, get those in. And sort of, you know, if you want to do bricks, I can do gray or vice versa. But once we have the huge slew of all of these tiles ready to go, we're going to finish them all up like this to get the sort of grungy dungeon look. And we'll have a massive set that maybe we'll put together and take a big old picture of. That might be fun. So, one of these piles will be left aligned and left opening doors, and one will be right opening doors. Since we have the option to do both, we might as well.
Might as well.
And while that paint's drying, we can do the doors.
Okay, let's do some doors.
Alright. Do you want to start left opening or right opening?
I don't care. Just point to the place for you. I mean, all we need to do is
pull the wire out and slide
stick it
through.
back in. Yeah.
Are you doing left opening?
I'm doing no, it looks like it.
The trick is getting it lined up with the hole in the bottom. That's the hard part, if you will. So, it still has the clip on it, but now we have a dungeon tile with an opening and closing door, like so.
So this will be right.
Yeah, I was going through all those. But
oh, you're gonna do all the lefts first.
yeah, just so I don't get them turned around.
Too terribly confused.
Yeah. And then once these are all in place, we're going to clip the wire, bend the wire over to give it a strong mechanical hold, and then clip the excess wire off and throw a little splotch of brown paint on the wire just to
kind of hide it.
To hide it. Alright, so these are on the other side now, so they open the other direction. I'll show you what I mean once I get this one loaded. And that one went surprisingly easy. So now this one opens this way instead of the other way. It's basically just what side is the hinge on. It's just a trick of lining up the hinges with the holes that you can't really see that well. Okay, that one took. But it gives you these nice dungeon tiles with a little mechanical door. When you're done, and you're working on getting them all flattened and clipped. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
And once you have those clipped, I'm going to take the dark brown and just put a dab of it over the metal so that it's not going to be a perfect cover, but when you're looking at it from a distance, you're just going to see a little knob, basically. But this is nice, getting all of the doors done. I think they're looking quite good. Once I have one clipped, painted, and ready, I will hold one up to show you the finished product.
So now I need a really good little clipper.
Yes, you do.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have one?
I don't know. Let's see.
It's just, I think that looks pretty good. Dark with the iron, dark wood with the iron. And what this can do, sort of, is if you're in a combat situation, you can be like, I can hide behind the door while it's open, things like that. You know, if you're doing an ambush or something. And you can actually sort of see which way it's open into the room and everything. It's kind of fun that way. Alright, so This one has been clipped in. So now, all I need is a bit of the brown paint. Just a touch on the end of the brush to just reduce the shininess factor of it, basically. That creates a door with a dungeon tile. Pretty nice. Well, in the end. And if we ever need to change the door or do a touch up, since it's not glued in, it just has this sort of mechanical bend over the top. All we have to do is take some pliers, unbend the wire, and it is going to be removable. Which will help quite a bit long term, hopefully. Well, hopefully we don't have to change anything, but you know, it's always nice to have that option. The chunk was stuck to the magnets in the base.
On the base.
I was like, what is that? And hopefully in the near future you're going to see this set we're working on in action when we're getting killed by an alchemically altered ultra-rich dwarf named Brukelian in our D&D campaign that we do Sundays at 2 p.m. Eastern here on this channel. That's my second advertisement for it today.
So do we want to glue these together?
Yeah, well, if they're good to go, why don't we finish up by finally getting these bandit towers in order.
Can you see the difference in the paint? It's a little different.
I don't really notice that. It might be because it's on the epoxy. It will not be noticeable. Also, there might be a little umber wash on the older paint.
Yeah, there is.
Whereas the younger paint does not have it.
So all we're going to do now is set these.
Glue them on top. The main thing we want to do is make sure the trapdoors are oriented correctly. Because we have these ladders, one small, one long. And I believe the small one goes to the ground, like so. I put little knobs on them to hold the ladder. So that's the small ladder. And the long ladder should go like that. So we just want them oriented the same way. So when they're in play, you have like, it's like two staircases on top of each other like that. That's the only thing we want to keep in mind. And we're going to keep the that hardener smell. Hey, since we have the hardener out, the epoxy out, let's also fix this guy.
Yeah, sure.
One of our dungeon tiles here, the glue just didn't hold, which is pretty good for 1 out of like 200. But we'll just have to re-glue this wall onto the tile. Yeah, this actually makes the ladders end up working with the tower, and there's not that awkwardly tall gap in between them anymore, which is nice. So that was just a mistake on our part when we glued it together, basically.
I'm going to put it on the bottoms of the other ones.
Okay. I'm going to set this to dry over here. Alright, so we're going with bottoms onto the tops. So I'm going to just want to make sure I line it up and drop it down onto the right area. Does that look in line? Hard to see from all. Or without glasses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the whole tower looks a whole lot better now.
Yeah, it was definitely backwards. And we just had looked at one picture and sort of ran with it. And we should have gone it through a little more. Are these looking good now?
Mm-hmm.
So, 2 finished bandit towers, a bunch of finished doorways. Today's been pretty good. Also, a bunch of ready to go dungeon corner pieces. Alright. And we're pretty close to 5, and these need to just set for a little bit here. They're gonna need a minute to cure.
Yeah, and if they don't line up perfectly,
They're not. It's it's a put together wooden tower. It's not gonna be perfect. So without bumping into them and moving off to the side so they have a time to dry, I'm gonna say thank you everyone who came by to watch.
Thanks for stopping in.
It was nice to talk to you all again. And yeah. We
It was
will
a productive time.
see you all soon. Bye.